Hello and welcome. In this video we're going to explore the Slavic deity Perun, who is categorized as the storm god, and his representation in iconography. I have delved into this topic in great detail in the first volume of my book Slavic Traditions and Mythology. Some of my patrons may already be familiar with the content, as they've had early access to certain materials. So before we proceed, I want to express my gratitude to those supporting the World Tree on Patreon, because it's their support that keeps the project alive. If you would like to become an honorary patron, gaining access to exclusive content and more, consider becoming a paid subscriber by following the link in the description. When exploring the iconography of Perun, we must first turn to the historical sources that describe his appearance in the primary chronicle, which speaks of the pantheon of Slavic gods erected by the Kievan prince Vladimir. Perun appears as the chief deity, and his idol is described as having a silver head and a golden moustache. The Gustin Chronicle enhances the image of Perun by saying that his feet were made of iron and his eyes were made of precious stones. In his hand he held a stone-like arrow adorned with precious stones. It also states the following. Firstly, Perkunos, who is Perun, was their senior god, created in the likeness of a man, and in his hands he held a precious stone like fire. They offered sacrifices to him as to a god, and an unquenchable fire burned incessantly from the oak wood. If it ever happened due to the negligence of the serving priest that this fire went out, they killed such a priest without any warning or mercy. The Radzivil Chronicle contains 3 representations of Perun, where he appears as a naked man who holds a shield and, in 2 examples, a scepter or a spear. However, in the same chronicle, Perun also appears as a naked bearded man holding a shield in one hand and this time an acorn in the other hand, which is related to the oak tree, the sacred tree to Perun, much like other Indo-European storm gods. Perun had a very strong cult in Novgorod, where an archaeological discovery of his sanctuary has been found. The destruction of Perun's idol in Novgorod is described in the Sofiskaya I chronicle. It is mentioned that when his idol was toppled into the river while passing under the great bridge, the idol threw his club made of oak wood and cursed the citizens in Novgorod, condemning them to perpetual conflict among themselves. Some other chronicles explain that fights were common on that bridge, along with the drowning of criminals. Criminals and traitors were taken to that bridge, where they were struck with a club known as Perun's club on the head, after which they were thrown into the river. When Adam Aurelius was passing through Novgorod in 1654, he recorded surviving legends about Perun. The people of Novgorod, when they were still pagans, had an idol called Perun, i.e. god of fire, because the Russians called fire Perun. On the place where his idol stood was built a monastery called Perun's Monastery. This deity was represented as a man with a flint in his hand, which looked like a lightning bolt or a ray. In honor of this deity, an everlasting fire from oak wood was kept burning, day and night. If one of the responsible for its maintenance let it extinguish, he would be punished by death. Apart from these historical descriptions and representations, it's noteworthy that in Belarus, Perun was envisioned as exceptionally tall, with black hair and a long beard, serving as a metaphor for the dark and stormy clouds. He is depicted as riding a chariot and shooting arrows to vanquish the impure, An analogous image of the storm god riding on a chariot of fire and using fiery or stone arrows to strike down dragons, devils, and other creatures, symbolizing his lightning bolts, exists among the South Slavs. A similar description is also found in a South Slavic song that narrates the attributes inherited by Kraljević Marko from Perun. According to the song, Marko possesses leech eyebrows like black swallow wings. He holds a war spear in his hand, tall as a thin aspen. He's covered himself with a hide, a cloak. He blackens as a dark cloud. This image of the thunderer closely corresponds to Thor in Norse mythology and Indra in the Vedic hymns. Interestingly, the rainbow is referred to as Indra's bow in some traditions, whereas in some South Slavic lands the rainbow is called God's bow, clearly implying Perun's bow. From all of this, the following attributes of the anthropomorphic figure of the Slavic thunderer can be extracted. He is male, sometimes represented naked, with a beard, silver or dark, and a mustache, golden. In his hands he holds the following objects: a shield, a heavy club of oak wood, spear or arrow, flint in the form of a thunderbolt, lightning or ray, sometimes adorned with rubies and sapphires. The most common combination is a shield in one hand and any of the other items in the other hand. The following iconographic variants are also known, such as a driver of a fiery chariot and archer with a bow and the fiery arrows made of stone. The axe should also be included in the list. Although it does not appear in the listed sources, we know for certain from various folklore sources that the axe, including the stone axe, was indeed related to the Slavic storm god, and we also have archaeological evidence of miniature axe amulets or pendants, especially from Eastern Slavic areas. Among the visual representations of Perun appears material from various artistic styles and time periods. One of the appearances of Perun has been considered to be on one side of the four sides of the Zbruch idol, particularly the side which contains a six-petal rosette or wheel, a symbol identified with the thunderer in Slavic folklore and beliefs, which deserves a video of its own. In addition to this, Perun has been identified on several small amulets and other objects. Typically, he is depicted as a man with a beard and or a mustache, with one hand on the waist and the other on the chest, or sometimes holding a drinking horn. In other cases, he is portrayed with both hands on the waist. Consistent with historical sources, he is often depicted topless or fully nude, although some miniatures suggest the presence of armor which emphasize his warrior nature. In most instances, he wears a helmet, either realistically depicted or symbolically alluding to a phallic shape. In some Western Slavic examples of knife scabbards, we can identify a symbolic cosmological image consisting of three parts. The bottom, representing the underworld realm, is depicted as a dragon's head or the head of a chthonic deity, Veles. The middle, representing the earth, is depicted with various animals and people, and the top, representing the sky, may depict Perun as a male deity standing, very similar to other depictions. One of the oldest depictions of Perun, dating back to the 7th century AD, originates from South Slavic lands currently located in Greece, from the so-called Velestino horde. In this depiction, a nude bearded male with an emphasized penis is shown, holding an axe in one hand and a shield in the other, corresponding perfectly to latter historical descriptions. While interpretations of this image may vary among academics, recent analyses increasingly support the view that this represents Perun. The best depiction of Perun is an early medieval 7th to 8th century relief illustrating the Slavic deity wielding a spear, emerging from a cloud, and striking a bear who represents the Chthonic deity Veles. This is essentially an illustration of the myth which speaks of the battle of these two gods. The original relief is currently integrated into the facade of the Church of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary in Zrnovnica, Croatia. Perun is shown on horseback, wearing a helmet on his head with a long beard along with large stretched out mustaches. He is depicted bare to the waist, emphasizing the musculature of his chest, which corresponds with other descriptions and representations of him. The church is situated near a hill which is called Perun, atop which stands a church dedicated to Saint George. The geomorphology of the area, along with its toponymy, suggests that before the church of Saint George, there likely existed a temple or sanctuary dedicated to Perun, and it is assumed that this stone was once a part of it. When we analyze all the provided images, along with the historical descriptions, we can observe a more or less coherent iconographical representation of this deity. Local variations in iconography arise due to the fact that our pre-Christian religious tradition was not dogmatic in this regard, allowing various modification within symbolic boundaries. This explains, for example, why the weapon of the storm god across all of Europe seems to align with the descriptions of Perun's weapon, as they are essentially all stemming from the same root and represent the same concept. This coherence is also evident when we compare the representations of Perun to other Indo-European thunder gods who are similarly depicted nude and wielding weapons that symbolize their thunderbolts. The reason behind this nudeness or nakedness is due to the male biological power of fertilization being the primary function upon which the development path of male deities is built. Therefore, it is interwoven into the symbolic structure of almost all male deities, regardless of their character and domains, manifested through the names of the deities and the mythical images through which they are represented. One indicator of this phenomenon is the fact that the male deities are depicted naked, even though their function does not necessitate it. Such representations were sometimes motivated by a clear purpose to showcase the masculinity of the deity, a symbolic element that evokes its fundamental meaning. Due to certain taboos preventing alterations in the visual representations of deities, this characteristic persists even when the original motive and symbolic meaning were forgotten. Perun's role as a storm god often overlaps with that of the highest Slavic deity, the sky god, whose iconographic representation often involves multiple heads or faces which look towards all sides of the world. However, that iconography will be explored in another video. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe. Consider becoming a patron of the World Tree for more content like this and for more detailed and long videos, along with exclusive access to other materials. If you're interested in delving deeper into these topics, I recommend checking out my books, which are available on Amazon. And if you appreciate my art, here's some good news for you. There's art prints now available for purchase online on various mediums. All of the links will be provided in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.